and welcome in everyone to this week's episode of Craze's Corner. It's been a while, but we are back. We're going to be breaking down some Dynasty buys today. And then next week or so, we're going to be talking about some Dynasty sells. So you're going to make sure you stay tuned for this episode and come back for the next one. But first, we got a couple of off-season news stories to talk about. The first being Derek Carr has been apparently rumored to be very happy with what he saw in their Jets visit. And the Jets were very happy with him as well. The Jets are probably going to wait until Aaron Rodgers has made his decision on his future. And if that's not with the Jets, then Derek Carr will likely be the next quarterback of the New York Jets. That's a situation to monitor. Apparently, they see him as a guy who can bring them a championship. Not sure I'm quite on the same wavelength there, but the Jets seem fairly confident with Derek Carr, so we'll see what happens in the coming weeks. The next news story is that Eric Bieniemy, former Chiefs OC, has decided to leave the Chiefs and sign with the Commanders to be their offensive coordinator. He was kind of stuck in Andy Reid's shadow. No one wanted to hire him because he was Andy Reid's offensive coordinator. Now he gets to go branch out. If he can make this Commanders offense look good with one guy we're going to be talking about a little bit later, or if he doesn't, then people were right in the assumption that this was Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid's offense, and Eric Bieniemy really didn't have anything to do with it. So we're going to get some answers to that within the next season or two. And the final news story is that Tom Brady, before he announced his retirement, according to Darren Waller, he was a lock to join the Las Vegas Raiders if he didn't retire. No idea how true this story is, but according to Darren Waller and some sources that he really trusts, Tom Brady was going to be a Las Vegas Raider. It's an interesting situation. I really don't think that Tom Brady would have made the Raiders a playoff team, like a playoff contender when it comes to the championship. I don't think they were going to win a Super Bowl. They weren't even going to be possibly the best team in their division. So it's an interesting situation to just think about. Where do you guys think the Raiders would have finished if they had Tom Brady and Josh McDaniels back together? You can let us know using the Media app. The Media app is a virtual press conferencing app that allows you to host a virtual press conference from your phone. The all-new version is out. There's tons of exciting and fun things to do on the app. You can answer other people's questions. You can ask questions. You can go on there, make a virtual press conference, replace your background. You can do a bunch of cool things, so you definitely need to go check that out. It's on the Google Play and the App Store. Now let's welcome in our guests, Jeff and Will. How are we doing today?
Hanging in there, man.
We're here.
Good to be back.
Yeah.
How about those Chiefs?
Yeah, the Chiefs, they look pretty good there at the end of the game. Came back in the second half. It was a pretty good finish, although people are all going to be over that holding call, whether it happened or didn't happen.
Yeah.
Eagle fans have a long memory.
Yep. Yeah, we won't stop
Never
hearing
hear
about that
anything.
until they win another one.
And it's funny that they don't say anything about the what should have been a fumble from Miles Sanders, but they sure will say something about that hold or pass interference call.
Yeah, there's no stopping that, Always going to be some call that people are going to bring up and try and explain. This is the reason we lost the game.
Yeah, right.
Bradbury himself said it was a hold. So
Yeah.
what more do you want than the other player coming out and said, "Yeah, I made a mistake, my bad." But as I said, this week we're going to be talking about some Dynasty buys. If you play Dynasty fantasy football, this is time where maybe you can make some trades to help you to win next year. Or possibly years after that. You can dump some guys who maybe you don't want on your team anymore, and you go out and target guys that you think their value is going to go up. So we've each got three guys we want to talk about here. I'm going to start us off. Close to my heart, I'm going to go with the Panthers running back Chuba Hubbard. Dante Foreman is currently not under contract for next season. It seems likely that they'll bring him back, but Chuba did look good for the Panthers last season despite a rough rookie year where he came in for Christian McCaffrey. The Panthers' run game looked good. They bring in a new offensive coordinator in Frank Reich. So hopefully they bring in some new play calling opportunities that Ben McAdoo might not have had. And then you look at his 4.95 yards per carry last season, which was up from his rookie year. He got involved a little bit in the passing game, and I think you give him, and even if they bring back Dante Foreman, a full season together in this new system, I think that they can both be valuable. Chuba only being 23, I think that gives him a little bit of a benefit here, and the fact that he can be a very good use in the passing game. We saw that with Jonathan Taylor in Indianapolis under Frank Reich. You can get the running backs involved in the passing game, and I think that's Chuba more than it is Dante Foreman. And I think that this offense is really going to try and take a step forward depending on what they do at quarterback, so there should be some more touchdowns coming for him. And overall, I think this is definitely just a better situation for Chuba to be in this year. And I don't think he's going to be that expensive. You can probably get him for a mid-second round pick, probably even less than that. And I would be paying that for Chuba this year because I think he's going to take that step forward and be the RB1 in this backfield. What do you guys think about Chuba Hubbard? Are you as excited about this new offense, Frank Reich being in Carolina, or are you a little bit hesitant? You want to see which running back he prefers come this season?
I mean, if you look at it, the worst he could be is Nyheim Hines. I get a feeling that they're going to utilize him, if Foreman's there or if not. So he would be a good guy to stash and hold on to, especially if you can get him pretty cheap.
Yeah. And with the uncertainty, right, he might be able to get it for cheap because you just don't know. So if your dynasty league's doing trades now, this is, I think, before free agency starts and the draft speculation really picks up. And that'll start next week, right, with the combine. So if you have a chance, do it now.
Yeah, exactly. Or even Chuba's a guy where the Panthers bring back Dante Foreman early in free agency, and then you can go out and say, okay, they just brought in Dante Foreman and be like, all right, now you can go buy Chuba for probably even less if that does happen. But currently, there's still a chance they don't bring Foreman back, and then he is far and away the RB1 for this offense. So I think it really is just a guy to monitor, see who he has, see who has him in your league, and you'll either be able to make a deal for him now, or maybe the guy's like, okay, I want to hold out because I think the Panthers aren't going to sign Foreman. I want him to be the RB1. When the Panthers do re-sign Foreman, you can be like, all right, now you should give him to me for a third-round pick instead. You can probably get some interest there. I talked a little bit, said we're going to bring up a player here for the Washington Commanders. Jeff's going to bring up their new quarterback one. Who are you trying to buy right now in Dynasty, Jeff?
Sam Howell, man. I think I picked him up in a couple of keeper leagues just right at the tail end of the season. The dude he's yet to have a bad game preseason, and then although it was the last game of the year, I've just had a lot more faith in him than I had in Carson Wentz or even Taylor Heineke. And I mean, the kid can throw the ball. I think with the receivers that the Commanders have and the running game, and now with the addition of a new offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy, I just think everything is, stacking up to look pretty well for him, man. And on Eric Bieniemy, I have a close source that said the touchdowns that were scored by the Chiefs in that second half, that little going in motion and sticking your foot in and going to the out route, was called by Eric Bieniemy. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, it's been some people they do like to hate on Eric Bieniemy, but Andy Reid has come out and said Bieniemy does do a lot of the red zone preparation for the team, and that kind of stuff. And then you get all these other players coming out and saying he does nothing to do with the passing game, and I think it really is kind of a middle.
Shady McCoy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man.
It really is a middle ground there. And I think Bieniemy, he has the opportunity and the tools now with Sam Howell. They have a great trio of wide receivers with Scary Terry, Curtis Samuel, and Jahan Dotson. You bring the two running backs that they have there. I think that they have an opportunity to really be a good offense if they can get some offensive line help here. And Sam Howell's got to take that step forward, but he's a guy I think you can probably buy for cheaper now than if he does hit. So if you really believe Sam Howell can be the guy for this team, you could definitely go out and buy him. Or even if you think that there's maybe a shot, you might be able to get him for so cheap because someone thinks that he's not their solution too.
Right.
So you just take a late round draft pick trade for him, depending if you're super flex or one quarterback league, and go and get him. What do you think about Sam Howell, Will?
The Commanders worry me a little bit because I'm not sure anyone on that roster is really settled because of the ownership change that's coming. And so new owners spend $9 billion, whatever the outrageous price is going to be for the Commanders franchise. I'm not sure how much any of this coaching staff or any of these players they're going to be wed to. So it just makes me a little nervous when teams are in that transition. So if you don't have to give up a lot for him, I think it's worth it. Honestly, if they don't have a great year next year and they have new owners, I think that whole coaching staff is gone. Yeah. And I actually think you could see serious, what do new owners do? They try to get a flashy star for the team for their investment. And so, the Commanders would probably go all in to get a young quarterback. Doesn't mean that Howell couldn't go somewhere else, but I would just be a little bit cautious about how much I'm going to pay for him.
Yeah, I think you'd be giving up a late round pick in a one quarterback league, maybe up into the second in a super flex league, a late second. Just because you're taking a shot on him pretty much for this year. If it pans out this year, it's going to work. And if it doesn't, as you said, new owners coming in. Rivera's probably on his way out if the Commanders don't do good this year. Bieniemy might stay just because he is a big name offensive coordinator and he just signed a new deal. But yeah, you're going to see a lot of turnover, and at the quarterback position, a new owner is not going to want to wait and just try and ride it out with Sam Howell if he doesn't look good this year. But if he does look good this year, then giving up a late second, if that's truly what you believe in Superflex League, I think that's definitely going to pay off in that regard. So it really is. This is a make or break year for Sam Howell.
Yeah,
and a lot of pieces on this Washington offense. So we'll see how it turns out for them. Hopefully, for Eric Bieniemy's sake and Sam Howell's sake, it does work out well for them. It would be good to see Bieniemy succeed so that he can get some more looks when it comes to the head coach position. It almost looked for a second like Mike Kafka, who was his quarterback's coach in Kansas City, was going to get the Arizona job. And I didn't think the NFL media was going to be okay with that if Bieniemy's sitting there at the OC position, but Kafka goes out and gets a head coaching job before him. So that didn't happen, luckily, but we'll see. We'll see what happens this year after the season if Bieniemy gets a couple more looks, if this offense looks good. But we got another guy we want to talk about here. We're going to the AFC side of the ball. Wide receiver who is surprisingly really good last year despite some quarterback troubles. So who do you want to talk about here as your first dynasty buy?
Jalen Waddle. If I can get him for a first-round pick, I'm doing it. Because I think his upside it's a good investment. I think his numbers only get better. I think in 2 years he might even be wide receiver 1, to be honest with you. I think Miami's going to get their quarterback situation hammered out, whatever that looks like. And I think he's just a player that, because of Tyreek Hill, people might be willing to move him because they're like, is he ever going to be a wide receiver 1? And the way that offense was moving, it was a wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 1B at certain parts in the season. So, if I need a wide receiver and I have a late first round pick, there's some rookies I'm interested in, but my gut is I would give that first pick up for Waddle if I can get that deal.
Yeah, Waddle, just looking at his numbers now, he finished as a PPR wide receiver 8 last year. And it really, if you had to just kind of look back and guess where he would have finished, they brought in Tyreek Hill and Tua was out for most of the second half of the season. You'd have been like, there's no way he finishes as a top 10 wide receiver, but he did. As you said, they'll figure out the quarterback situation. I think they'll continue to move forward with Tua. I hope that the concussions aren't a problem, and if they're not, this offense looked really, really good with Tua, Jalen Waddle, and Tyreek Hill there. So I think this is definitely a situation where if you can get him for a first-round pick, you might even be able to package a late first and the second to get him, something in that range. I think he's definitely going to be worth that. He's only 24 years old. So another thing to look at, he's a top draft pick. So they have the draft capital. He's got the connection with his quarterback. The coaching staff really likes him. And he's not the number one option on this team, so the defenses aren't really just staring him down the entire game. They can't do that. So that opens up the big plays that we saw from him last year in this offense. So I like this pick. He's a guy who I have on a couple dynasty rosters. and I'm quite happy that I do. Jeff, anything you want to add to Jalen Waddle before we move on?
I think that's what makes him so valuable is that Tyreek Hill is on that roster.
Yeah.
I think that's what leads to their. I can't remember. You can probably tell me the stat, Zach, but I believe that Waddle have more touchdowns than Hill. So
I think so.
yeah, and
he did one more
when they're double covering or watching Hill. Man, he's usually there for a big play, and then he gets so many targets as well. So you get both. Only thing is just I feel like you're going to have to give up quite a bit for him. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, he's in an interesting spot. I feel like some owners are definitely in love with Jalen Waddle, but other owners, as Will said, questions like quarterback now, Tyreek Hill's there. Maybe they do want to move on from him, either get draft picks or some other solid players. So maybe you could trade an older wide receiver, get younger.
Yeah.
Maybe a Devontae Adams for a Jalen Waddle type deal.
That's what I was thinking.
Depending on what kind of situation that other team is in.
Right.
So I like that move. And obviously these guys, if your guy who has him wants everything for these players, you're not going to do that. These are some guys that we think you might be able to get for cheap. So you can go out there, look for them, and they'll be buying at a value. But there does come a point with all these guys where you're buying them overpriced. So we're not saying give up, everything for these guys. Just you got to kind of know what the value is and try and gauge whether or not you can make a good deal here. We're going to move on to my next guy, still in the AFC at the wide receiver position. Finished last year, the PPR wide receiver 122. And that's a big reason why I think you can go get Sky Moore in this Kansas City Chiefs offense for cheaper this offseason. He was probably a first-round pick in your Dynasty rookie draft last year. And to me, he's still an elite route runner. I just didn't really get super involved in this offense last year. He only had 33 targets, but he did do good when it comes to yards per catch. He had over 11 yards per catch. So he was explosive when he had the ball. We saw him score in the Super Bowl. So I think that's something as the season went on, we started to see him get more and more involved. Questions around whether they bring Juju back. Mecole Hardman's a free agent. They're paying MVS, but I'm really not too worried about MVS when it comes to Sky Moore. So I think this is a guy who's going to get more targets. I think he's super talented, and he's only 22 years old. So you can get this guy for maybe a veteran player. You can get him for a later pick. I'd give up a second-round pick for Sky Moore, late second-round pick. Maybe you package a couple of picks depending on what your situation looks like. You can get yourself Sky Moore, who, as I said, was a first-round pick last year. He was drafted in the second round for the Chiefs. They've invested the draft capital. I believe that they believe in him. Sometimes it does take wide receivers a little bit to get going in this Andy Reid offense, though. So this is a situation where I see you can get him for fairly little in comparison to what it would cost you last season. And I think he still has the same promises that he had before, the same upside. So Sky Moore is a guy that I would look to try and go see if you can get in your dynasty leagues. Jeff, what do you think of Sky Moore? Do you think he has the opportunity to emerge as Patrick Mahomes' number 2 option?
I think so. I'm actually keeping an eye on what's going on with Mecole Hardman because there just really is no true number 1 receiver. Some people would argue Juju, and I still don't think he is the number 1 receiver in that offense. We don't know if that's going to end up being Kadarius Toney. So again, somebody other than Kelsey, is going to get that wide receiver 1 tag, and I think it could be Sky Moore. So he's a valuable piece to hold on to. I'd say that. But see if you can get him low, or if you do have him, maybe hold on to see what he pans out to be.
Yeah, he's got the opportunities. Kadarius Toney is a great gadget player. Not sure we'll ever see him emerge to be a wide receiver 1 in the NFL. And he said Travis Kelce's there, but this is kind of the same situation we see with Tyreek Hill. It's in Jalen Waddle. It's good to have a big target there, so that you kind of can fall behind in the defense. You can get lost in these coverages, and we all know Patrick Mahomes is one of the best at finding guys when it comes to that. So I think that this is the opportunity. As I said, Miko Hardman and Juju are both free agents. So it really doesn't leave too much on the wide receiver core roster. So we'll see what happens. Will, what do you think about Sky Moore? Are you interested in looking into him in your league?
Oh, in our league, I haven't.
Yeah.
And I'm not moving him. So because somebody has to emerge, and I don't know. Maybe Kansas City will go pick up somebody in free agency.
Yeah.
But my gut is they probably use that 32nd pick. These wide receivers are going to drop in this draft. I think they're going to be the bottom half of the first round is where you're going to see these wide receivers go. And if that's the case, they may get someone at that 32nd pick that honestly should have probably went in the top 20. And so, then watch. Then everybody's in your dynasty draft going to be trying to take that wide receiver in the top 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be interesting. I think Kansas City will try to go young and cheap at the wide receivers because you got to think you just won a Super Bowl with just Kelsey.
Yep.
Right. And so, do I really need to overpay for a wide receiver right now? Maybe I go young and get a couple.
They're already
guys.
overpaying for MVS, so they don't need to.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm keeping Sky Moore. It'll be interesting to see what happens draft day and what the Chiefs do in the first or second round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if they draft a wide receiver round 1, Sky Moore will probably be worth almost nothing in your dynasty league. So you can definitely go out and take a flyer shot on him if you can get him anywhere. And like I said, I think he had the talent to me last year to be a round 1 wide receiver in that draft class. So we'll see what happens. I hope he pans out, and he is a guy that I heavily have shares of in dynasty leagues. Unfortunately, not in the dynasty league we're all in, because as Will said, he has him. But he's a guy that I do like to have on my roster. He's a bench piece, a depth piece that could turn out to be a wide receiver 1. But Jeff, we'll stick in the AFC again. We're going to go to the wide receiver position. George Pickens is a guy you're looking to buy. What interests you so much about him?
Well, the guy, his hands and his athletic ability are off the charts. And I think that he's going to be available because I still think a lot of people don't think that Kenny Pickett is going to be a guy that's going to get him the ball early and often. I actually think the opposite. I think those two are going to definitely continue to develop the rapport that they had towards the end of the season. And I really think Deontay Johnson is going to be the loser in that whole equation. I think those two are going to become the new connection to where he's going to be that guy where Pickett can just throw the ball up or Pickett can throw the ball up and Pickens is just going to go up and Pickens it out the air. Put it like that. He's just got that type of talent, man. This dude is just throw it up, I'm going to go get it. And he's just one of those athletic receivers that I think is going to end up being dynamic. So.
Yeah, I think so. He showed a lot of flashes in his rookie year there in Pittsburgh. You saw him make all these unbelievable catches. Kind of reminded you of like a rookie Odell Beckham Jr., where he's just making all these plays. No one ever expected him to make. The quarterback play was probably subpar for majority of the season, but Kenny Pickett started to turn it up a little bit come the end of the season. So that they can continue to build that connection. As you said, Deontay Johnson, it looked like he was starting to kind of fall out, and Pickens was starting to move up in that rotation. And now that Claypool's gone, I think that also definitely helps them there. So I do like Pickens. My only worry is he's going to be a guy that whoever owns him right now is like, I just saw this guy go off at the end of last year.
Exactly.
I don't really want to trade him right now, but if you can go out and get him, if you can try and find a Pickens owner who's maybe not super thrilled, he just kind of took him last year because he felt he had to. That sort of situation, he's a guy that I'd be interested in getting for sure. Will, anything you want to add about George Pickens here?
Well, Pittsburgh intrigues me a little bit because I think they're a sleeper to draft a quarterback. And I think if the kid out of Florida, Anthony Richardson,
I was just thinking that.
I just think Tomlin never seemed like a guy to me that is not willing to move on quickly, even if the person they have is good. If he thinks he can get better at the position, and that's what's keeping him from winning. So it would be interesting if they got like an Anthony Richardson and put him in that offense. Then those skill players, those values are going to go through the roof. So that's what I'll be watching. I just, they're kind of sitting in the good part of the draft, the middle. There's going to be we all know there's going to be a quarterback that drops. So if it's the right quarterback, is Pittsburgh really going to say, hey, yeah, we're going to pass on it to get something else? I don't think so.
They might, because them Seahawks are sitting there looking at Richardson too. Like, we can't sign Geno. I had to bring him up sooner or later.
Yeah, Geno will get tagged if he can't reach a long-term agreement. But then you sit Richardson under Geno for a year. That's probably better than trying to start Richardson year one. I'm not sure he's
Richardson's and that may be good for Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
they could play Pickett for a year, and if he has a good year, then they could trade him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's, and I wonder if more teams are going to start doing that. The quarterback position being so valuable, it's worth having 2 first-round quarterbacks or a first and second round quarterback on those rookie deals, because then it gives you leverage.
Yeah, it's not really first round, but look at what 49ers have to deal with this offseason now.
Right.
Brock Purdy, who was a rookie last year, and Trey Lance, who's second year now, both coming off injuries, but they both, you picked the one number 3 overall, traded up 3 first-round picks to get them. And the other one turns out to lead you to the NFC Championship game and unfortunately get hurt. Otherwise, they probably would have won that game. So that's a situation there where they'll be able to leverage one and trade the other most likely. So that's a situation we could see more and more often now with these young guys if they can just get in the right system.
And it makes you wonder, like, if Purdy, I think that elbow, I don't think he's ready at the start of the season.
I don't think so.
So it makes me wonder if the 49ers don't, maybe they trade with Pittsburgh. Move up to Pittsburgh's spot. Pittsburgh moves down. They send Trey Lance. I don't think they're sold on Trey Lance anymore.
I don't think so. I think they're sold on Brock Purdy being the guy.
Yeah. So, it'll be interesting to see what the 49ers do. It's not going to be Garoppolo, but there's going to be some veteran that goes in there that is going to start for them.
Yeah, because Purdy will need some time.
Yeah.
You got to make sure your elbow's all right before you come back and start throwing. They already delayed his surgery due to some swelling in his elbow. So that's something that doesn't really bode well for him being ready, even though he's supposed to be. So we'll see how that situation goes. But if they do move Trey Lance, because you can't go into next season with Trey Lance starting.
Nope.
And Brock Purdy coming off that injury, because as soon as Brock Purdy's ready to go, if Lance hasn't been good, you pull him, and then you've pretty much lost all leverage when it comes to trading him. Yeah. Or if he's playing good, then you're really kind of in a situation where it's a decent situation, but you don't really want to have 2 quarterbacks like that on your roster, because one of them's not going to be very happy.
Yeah.
But let's move on to a situation where there are also some quarterback questions here. Will, your wide receiver you're looking to trade for is Drake London, coming off a decent rookie season. What do you want to say about him?
Atlanta's going to have a new quarterback. Is it a rookie or is it a trade? And I think London's the value's going to go way up after that happens. And so if you can get London, if you don't own him like I do in a lot of my leagues.
Yes, Will also owns Drake London in this Dynasty league.
You got to go get him, because once he hits, kind of like Justin Jefferson, right? If you could have got him traded when he didn't start the first couple of weeks for the Vikings his rookie year, you probably had some owners that were freaking out in the Dynasty league, like, I drafted this guy. Oh my God, there's something wrong. He's not even starting. But once that window opens for London and he hits it, you're not going to be able to get him. So even if it costs you a first round pick, to me, it's worth it.
I'll let Jeff go first. What are your thoughts on Drake London? Would you give up a first round pick for him?
I don't know. I don't think so. Not yet. I mean, he did show flashes. He definitely did. Just that question mark at quarterback. Is it going to be Ritter? Anything. Actually, I'm not giving up unless it's the running back. What's your guy, Zach?
Tyler Algier.
Yeah.
Oh, Cordell Patterson?
Than anybody with a number 1 pick coming out of that offense, as long as that head coach is still there. Yeah. As long as he's there, I can't give up that type of capital for anybody in that offense right now. Maybe other than Algier, it would have to be like a deep first round. Now I don't even know if I can do that. It'd be something like a second round with Algier. So
Yeah, I don't think I'd be giving that up for Algier. But we'll talk a little bit about London in a second here. But I want to bring up my guy, who I think is the best passing option in this offense, and that's a guy I'm going to try and trade for, and that's going to be Kyle Pitts. So I think Will and I kind of have opposing views as to who's going to be the number one target in this offense. To me, I would take a shot on Kyle Pitts at the tight end position. I prefer him as a prospect over Drake London. And depending on what this quarterback situation is, kind of the same arguments you can make for Drake London, make for Kyle Pitts. They're both big targets in an offense that should have a new quarterback. So it's going to be which one pans out. You probably have to give up a late first-round pick to get Kyle Pitts as well, or some sort of trade. I think last year I traded Devontae Smith and Dawson Knox for Kyle Pitts and a pick back to me. So it's kind of that sort of situation where you have to give up a bit to get these guys, but I think that either London or Pitts can really break out next year. I'm going to take my shot on Pitts. I think he is the better talent out of the two. And at tight end position, I like to play in tight end premium leagues. So in our Dynasty league, Kyle Pitts would have a little bit of a premium on as well. So to me, Kyle Pitts is a guy in this offense that I think is going to be able to break out, but it could be Drake London as well. I just have a little bit more confidence. I wasn't a huge Drake London guy coming out of college. And the Falcons picked him. Being a Panthers fan, I was all right with that. Wasn't too worried. I think they could have got the Jameson Williams in that piss spot and probably would have been better off for the future. They passed on Jameson Williams and decided to go for Drake London. So we'll see how it happens. But as a Panthers fan, I've seen what Kyle Pitts can do, and he's a guy that I would try and look for trading-wise if you can get him. Anything you guys want to say about Kyle Pitts? Would you rather have Kyle Pitts or
I don't trust either one of them, especially Kyle Pitts. I've been burnt too much in the past. Can't do it. It's one of those things. Oh, he's going to do it this year, and then nope. And as long as the head coach is there, I don't even want to mention his name.
Yeah, you should have been gone a while ago.
Look, I'm going to say something. If they end up trading for Lamar Jackson, I think London or Pitts could be part of the trade.
Then I'm looking at Pitts.
But I think London or Pitts could be part of the trade to get Lamar Jackson.
But that would more likely be London.
I
don't think Baltimore needs a second.
No, but Mark Andrews.
No, they sure don't. Because they got that other.
Yeah, but Andrews getting up there, but they've also got Josh Oliver, a couple other guys underneath Mark Andrews who are still good. Whereas you look at their wide receiver position, and it's not quite as talented a group there. So Drake London could be going to Baltimore, and they could have a new quarterback. Yeah. And then if Lamar Jackson gets Kyle Pitts, then it's really game over. Kyle Pitts is going to be a top tight end in the league.
If he can stay healthy.
Yeah, he's got to stay healthy. That's another reason you can buy him right now is because people are worried about that. The quarterback situation, the offense, there's a lot of question marks. But I think the talent will shine through when it comes to Kyle Pitts there. But, Jeff, let's move on to a wide receiver you want to talk about in the NFC. Who do you want to bring up as your last dynasty buy here?
Man, you know me. I really like one guy on this team, but the other guy proved to be everything that people thought he was going to be at the beginning of the season. He came on in that second half and proved that he's bigger, faster, and he's going to be a beast. And he reminds me of Devontae Adams, and that is Christian Watson. That dude, even with Jordan Love there, they show that they even have a little bit of chemistry. So I'm not worried about Rodgers walking away. I think he's going to be one of those wide receivers where it's not going to matter who is at the quarterback position. He's going to succeed.
Yeah, I think he's a guy who you might be able to buy now just because of the fact that everyone's like, what's going to happen with Rodgers? Is he staying? Is he going? People aren't going to be as high on him if Rodgers goes. So you might be able to get some good offers back for Christian Watson. So if you're looking at it from that perspective, do I want Christian Watson if Aaron Rodgers isn't there? I probably don't. I'm not super high on Love. it could turn out to be, but the Packers are talking about still wanting to bring back Alan Lazard. As you said, Dobbs is there in this offense with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. I think there's a lot of mouths to feed, and none of the mouths are particularly elite, in my opinion. So it's not like Devontae Adams is in this offense where he's going to get majority of the targets. I don't think Christian Watson is Devontae Adams. I think that's a little bit of a stretch when it comes to a comparison, for my opinion, because Devontae Adams. I think Devontae Adams is arguably he's 1 and 2 when it comes to wide receivers right now in the NFL, whether it's him or Justin Jefferson. I have them on the same tier. It's just those two by themselves up there. Adams slowly starting, I think, he will lose it next year to Justin Jefferson. But for right now, I think he's 1 and 2. So I don't really want to put Christian Watson on looking like a Devontae Adams type wide receiver yet. But I'm not super promising about the whole offense for Green Bay. I'm trying to get rid of any Green Bay Packers I have. If you can get anything for them, I would be getting rid of my Green Bay Packers. Will, anything you want to add?
I mean, Watson's okay if it's a 3rd round pick. Because the intangibles are too much. Because the difference is Love. I think Love's going to be a good NFL quarterback. Is he able to make the throws that the Green Bay faithful, is so used to those intangible throws that just end up at the right place at the right time? And Love is going to take some points away running. So, it's one thing about Aaron Rodgers is you knew what you were getting. You knew you were going to get throws. You weren't going to have to give up. I mean, he did run for some touchdowns, but he wasn't a vulture at it. And now, Love is going to run. If the first or second read's not there, he's not staying in the pocket and looking to go 50 yards downfield. He's taking off.
Yeah, that's one thing you always had with Rodgers was that deep ball, and that's what Christian Watson benefited from last year, was that deep ball that we all know Rodgers is one of the best at in the NFL. Compare him to Russell Wilson from, anything but last year. They both just have that ball that looks fantastic. So I think what you said, Jordan Love doesn't really have that in his bag. So that hurts the deep threat that Christian Watson is. Maybe that benefits a little bit more of Romeo Dobbs, who's more that underneath guy.
Or the outlet, like maybe the running back receptions really go way up as the outlet or the tight end. It'll be a different offense with Love. And I think folks with Packers on their roster have to be very conscious of, even if Jordan Love's good, is he great? And we're used to great quarterback play from the Packers, and I don't think that's going to be great.
We'll have to see how LaFleur adapts to not having Rodgers too, because there's a lot of questions about him last year. Maybe he's going to be out once Rodgers leaves. So we'll have to see what this offense looks like with LaFleur and Love there and see if they can get this thing going. I'm not super confident, but I'm very confident in this next guy Will's going to bring up. I happen to own him in our Dynasty League, and I'm quite happy he turned it up at the end of last year. Will, who are you trying to buy?
Oh, Cam Akers, baby. I'm telling you, whether it's with the Rams or somewhere else. Now, I'm going to tell you, I think he's a sleeper for a draft day trade with the Vikings. That if the Rams want to move him and the Vikings are not going to keep Cook, they're not going to sign Madison. He knows the offense. Just saying, like if I'm the Vikings rookie deal, I'm going to. And the Vikings, since the new leadership has come in, they're willing to trade. So I don't put it by a draft day trade at 3rd or 4th round because I don't think the Rams are sold on Cam. There was a lot of damage there, and so I think Cam's a steal if you can get him, because he's going to be somewhere in the NFL and he's going to really pay off next year.
Yeah, I think we saw the last 5 games from him when he started to actually get on the field. Any game he had over 70% of the snaps, he had at least 100 yards rushing, or a touchdown. So when you look at those numbers in that offense, now the Henderson's not there. He's by far the number 1 running back on this team. So I think if he stays in Los Angeles, he's going to have a really good year. Matthew Stafford will come back. We'll see what that means for the offense. Probably just means some more checkdowns coming Cam Akers' way in comparison to what we saw from Baker Mayfield at the end of last year. So Matthew Stafford, he may not be the guy he once was, but when it comes to being smart with the football and checking it down, I think that benefits Cam Akers. We saw that he was averaging, 5 yards per carry at the end of the season there. So that's something you also look at, as he's only 23 too. To get 23-year-old running back coming off of a 4 or 5 stretch game that we saw there in what has proven to be a really good system. That's what I like as well. If he goes to Minnesota, like Will says, and they get rid of Dalvin Cook, that's another offense that he'd be very explosive in. And that's arguably a better situation for him in that offense than the current situation. But with the Rams offense, I think you can go too many questions around him as well. If I have Cam Akers, I'm happily holding him, not trying to trade him at all. But if you can go buy him, he was a very good buy, I think, middle of last year before his kind of breakout. But there's still, as Will said, lots of questions, quarterback questions. There's coaching questions. McVay almost retired. Do they even want him there? Questions, which you don't get with a lot of these guys.
And the Rams feel like they need to probably replenish some draft picks.
Yeah.
Right. And so they're not going to get a lot for him because there's going to be good guys in this draft in the 4th round. There's going to be running backs in the 5th round that are going to put up.
And you look at the free agent class that's coming up.
Yes.
I made a post about it the other day. The running backs in this free agent class are probably the most stacked out of any position group when it comes to talent. You got your Tony Pollard, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Kareem Hunt, David Montgomery, Miles Sanders, Rashad Penny, Jamal Williams, Alexander Madison, Damian Harris, Devin Singletary, like all these guys that have started over the past few years, and they're all free agents. And we're going to see a bunch of change at the running back position. Even guys like Donta Foreman, we talked about a little bit earlier, as a free agent. So there's going to be a lot of pieces to plug and play in a talented running back draft class with Robinson, Gibbs, and a bunch of
when Aaron, and I get what the Packers did with Aaron Jones. Honestly, if I was the Packers, I wouldn't have done that. I mean, when he went down to $9 million, like Dalvin Cook's $14 million, there's no way the Vikings are paying him $14 million. If Aaron Jones went down to $9 million for this year, and there's some escalators in that contract, but if it's down to $9 million, Aaron Jones is $9 million. You'll be lucky to get $5 million on the open market. And then some teams, I think we'll be shocked how many potentially tier one running backs are sitting unsigned going into training camp.
Yeah, it could very well be. Yeah. You even got your guys like Alvin Kamara, who's currently dealing with his off-the-field issues. Cook's getting up there in age. There's a couple other guys like that as well who, Zeke's probably – he's going to have to take a big pay cut if he wants to stay in Dallas because they're probably not going to let Pollard go. So there's going to be some change-up at the running back position, and you're going to want to hope that you get lucky when it comes to who you have on your Dynasty roster that doesn't fall against you and it kind of falls into your favor. So you don't want to have too many eggs in one basket if you're in a bunch of Dynasty leagues. But Akers is a guy that I'm fairly confident with. Anything you want to add to that, Jeff? Before we talk about Zach's picks?
The only thing that gets me about Akers is just with him being on the Rams, because I can tell you right now, McVay is going to pick up another running back, maybe two in the draft. That's the issue. When he starts cycling guys in and out, he went from forcing the ball to Cam Akers when he was coming off his injury, the year they won the Super Bowl, to, basically almost getting rid of him and phasing him out of the whole offense last year. So I just don't understand. They also, picked up another running back that was often hurt last year as well, that we kind of thought was going to get some run towards the end of the season. So that's the thing. There's just too many things up in the air. If they trade Cam Akers, it's probably the best thing. If he goes somewhere where he's going to actually get some run, then I might be looking at him a little bit more. But if he stays with the Rams, I just don't know what the heck they're going to do with him. And I don't trust anything.
And those questions that Jeff's asking is why you can probably get him for cheaper than what he's really worth right now. It's just the uncertainty. And in Dynasty, you kind of have to take advantage of the uncertainty. You kind of have to go with what you believe is going to happen. Because for all these guys that we've talked about, there is some sort of uncertainty, and you have to take risks in Dynasty if you want to be a championship contending team. So you got to go out there, take your risk on these guys, and hope for the best. We have Zach from Ocean State. He's not here with us, but he sent us in his picks, so we're going to quickly talk about these before we end the show. So his first pick is a guy on a team that we thought was going to be great last year, and turned out to not be. That's going to be Javonte Williams with the Denver Broncos. Williams, unfortunately, on IR with his ACL injury. So he will be coming back off an ACL injury. Normally not great for running backs first year off the ACL injury. So he might start off slow to the season, but he's 22 years old. He's in an offense that can only get better. This offense cannot get worse. They're bringing a new head coach, Sean Payton. There's your owners bringing in their new star, as Will talked about a little bit earlier on the show. They had new owners there. They went all out, traded for Sean Payton. He's been known to have some really good running backs when it comes to Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara for fantasy football. Touchdown monster for Alvin Kamara there. So we could see Javonte Williams playing in that type of a role. There really isn't too much on this depth chart that concerns me now that Melvin Gordon's gone. Mike Boone. This is another team where I could see them bringing in a guy. One of the guys we named before, they could bring in another running back, but that doesn't necessarily take away from Javonte. I think he's a talented back, and he's a guy that I would be looking into. Seeing what the guy who has him.
I got him, Zach. Call me. Because you have Sam Howell. So call me. Let's see what we can work out.
I have Al in that league.
What's that? No, not you.
Ocean.
He's got.
Oh, Ocean has.
He drafted him right before me, man. So,
there you go. So yeah, I think that Sam Howell, or not Sam Howell, I think Javonte is a good guy if you can go try and get. But you got to be wary. You don't want to give up too much for a guy coming off the ACL injury. You guys have any interest in trying to go? Obviously, Jeff's trying to sell.
No.
Javonte,
No.
do you have any interest, Will?
He doesn't. He's not a Sean Payton running back, in my mind.
Yeah, he doesn't really fit the Kamara.
No.
But maybe Sean Payton's decided he wants to change it up.
I see like Tony Pollard or somebody end up in Denver if the Cowboys don't franchise him. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a situation that could
be. Payton wants a running back that can do damage in the passing game, really do real damage in the passing game. And so if I had to bet, Tony Pollard's the one.
Yeah, that would be a good fit for him. People also talk about Pollard going to the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very good chance if Pollard leaves Dallas, he's going to end up in the AFC West on one of those two teams there.
Yeah.
So that's a guy where there's some question marks around him. Another guy Zach wanted to bring up here, Michael Pittman Jr. Not sure I would go in that direction targeting Michael Pittman Jr. If I had him, I'd probably be trying to sell him due to the fact that they're bringing in new quarterbacks. But I don't really love the situation for Michael Pittman. They bring in a new head coach. Not sure I'm in love with that. We saw how the last Eagles offensive coordinator ended up for them. We'll see how this one does, but not so sure I believe in Steichen any more than I believed in Reich. I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. They're in an odd position where they can trade up and possibly get Bryce Young. Or if they sit and wait, they might end up with Will Levis or possibly even Anthony Richardson or something like that. But this isn't really a situation for Richardson because he's not going to be able to sit behind anyone.
Right.
Because there's no one on this quarterback depth chart that's like, wow, okay, this guy, he's going to get some play. So it's really a wide open thing. And Michael Pittman, he is currently 25, so he's not that old. But they're going to have to pay him. There's not really too much on the rest of this offense when it comes to talent other than Jonathan Taylor, top-end talent, that is. So Pittman, maybe you can get him for a value, but he's not a guy I would be actively targeting. Do you guys both feel the same way about Michael Pittman, or one of you guys high on him?
Yep, I've been waiting for him to break out now for a while. And he's had, some decent quarterbacks. So, can't be – you're not – I mean, he had decent quarterback play. Wentz wasn't that bad with his time there. And Phillip Rivers was, he was all right. Hey, got him into the playoffs while they were there. So, he's had enough time to kind of produce something. And I'm watching like guys like, Paris Campbell was actually doing more damage than he was last year. So
Yep.
I don't know, man. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the situation for me. But the next one is definitely a situation for me. Zach wants to bring up my guy DJ Moore as a trade for target. I think the Panthers bring back Darnold and draft a quarterback is kind of the situation that I see them going in. Darnold probably ends up being the starter week 1. And DJ Moore, we've seen nothing but great things from him and Sam Darnold together. In the games that they played together, he seems to always put up in that 15 to 20 point range. So that's something I like when it comes to DJ Moore. They're going to draft a quarterback. So it depends on whether or not they trade up to get Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, or they sit where they are. Maybe they take Anthony Richardson, Will Levis. We'll see what it looks like at the quarterback position for them. But I do like the system that Frank Reich's going to bring in comparison to whatever the heck Ben McAdoo was running last year. So I think that's an upgrade, even though it didn't quite work out for them in Indy. I think it can work out for them in Carolina. He's the number 1 target, obviously the best wide receiver on this team. And I feel like the offensive line play was much better last year. I think they continue to build on that. The defense is good. I think DJ Moore is in a situation where hopefully now he can get some consistent quarterback play, whether Sam Darnold just needs to stay healthy and stay on the field, or they draft a quarterback and bring that guy in. But I think DJ Moore can have some fancy relevance, and he could finally probably be that wide receiver 1 people want him to be, as opposed to his 4 years of the past 4 years, he's been the wide receiver 2. Whether that's in between 12 and 24, he's finished there the past 4 years. Other than his rookie year, his 5 years ago, he didn't finish top 24, but since then he's been a top 24 wide receiver every year. And I pretty much think that's his floor again. So if you can go out and get him at a discount because of the quarterback situations, I think that's definitely a move I would make. Are you guys also in on DJ Moore? Are you guys hesitant? I'm a Panthers fan, so I don't really want to sway too much, but want to hear your guys' thoughts too.
Yeah, that's the second letter and last name is different for me. The only guy with D in front of his name is K Metcalf. That's the only guy I'm taking with the 2 initials in his first name. I'm good on DJ Moore.
I'm just gonna be nice. I just think there's too many question marks, right?
Yeah.
And if just I guess it depends. Like if I'm late in the 3rd round, because who's going to be there late in the 3rd round that's worth taking the risk on? I mean, if I get him for a late 3rd round pick, yeah, I'm not giving him a 1st or a 2nd for him. But would I want him on my roster compared to somebody I'm going to draft late in the Dynasty draft? The 36th guy in the Dynasty draft? I'd probably take DJ Moore.
Yeah, I would be comfortable giving up 2nd round pick for DJ Moore. Probably closer to the high 2nd round picks in comparison to the other guys we talked about. I'm fairly confident. The draft, you're taking a chance on a guy. DJ Moore's going to be a wide receiver 2 next year, and he has upside to be a wide receiver 1. So for me, if you're anywhere sort of close to competing, he is been this wide receiver 2. So if you can go get him for a 2nd round pick, that's not bad value. Or maybe, you get him and he turns out to be this wide receiver 1, and that's great. Mm-hmm. Great for you because these 2nd round picks don't always turn out to be, but this is a fairly deep draft class, so we will see what happens. But we've been through all of our picks here, so I want to thank you guys both for joining and thank everyone for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said, we'll be doing a Dynasty Sells show next time we are on. So we'll talk about a couple more guys that maybe you want to try and look to get rid of. Maybe try and get some of these guys back in those trades. Mm-hmm. So that's a show you'll definitely not want to miss if you play Dynasty football. And like I said, check out the Media app. We talked about that a little bit earlier. Go check it out. Download the Media app. Bunch of new things. It's a lot of fun. Go check it out. Download it. Google Play and App Store. And thank you guys again for joining. See you again next week.
Gotcha.
Take care.